Have you ever been on the hunt for a simple, really safe way to save money and, maybe get a nice little tax break in the process? If so, you've probably come across something called the National Savings Certificate, or the NSC. So today, let's break it down, demystify this thing, and figure out if it's the right move for you. Yeah, if that question right there sounds familiar, you're definitely in the right place. The NSC was literally created to do just that, to be a safe harbor for your savings while also handing you a pretty valuable tax benefit. So here's our game plan. First, we'll cover what the NSC actually is. Then we'll get into the numbers, the interest and returns. After that, the tax benefits, which are a huge deal. We'll touch on how to manage it, and then wrap it all up by seeing how it stacks up against other options out there. All right, let's jump right in. What exactly is a National Savings Certificate when you get down to it? Okay, so in the simplest terms, the NSC is a savings bond that you can buy at any post office. Think of it like this. You're basically giving the government a loan, and in return, they promise to pay you back in 5 years with a guaranteed fixed rate of interest. It's a classic for a reason. It's designed to help people build a solid savings habit. So, who can get in on this? Well, this is one of its biggest selling points. It's super accessible. Pretty much any Indian citizen living in the country can invest. You can do it for yourself, for a child, or even open a joint account. The rules for who can't invest are just as clear. It's not for NRIs, HUFs, or big companies. Simple as that. I love this analogy because it's perfect. On one hand, it works a lot like a 5-year fixed deposit. But the most important part of that phrase is that you can't easily break. That 5-year lock-in period, it forces you to be disciplined with your savings. It keeps you from dipping into it, making sure your money actually has time to grow. All right, let's get to the part everyone really wants to know about, right? The numbers. How much can you actually earn? Let's see how your money grows. The current rate is 7.7% per year. Now, it's important to note that the government takes a look at this rate every 3 months and might change it for new investments. But, and this is the crucial part, whatever the rate is on the day you put your money in, that's your rate. It is locked in for the entire 5-year journey. Okay, now for a tiny detail that makes a big difference. The NSC compounds interest annually once a year. A lot of bank FDs, on the other hand, compound quarterly or 4 times a year. So why does this matter? Well, because of how compounding works, that 7.7% annual rate from the NSC is pretty much the same as getting a 7.5% rate from a bank FD that compounds quarterly. It's a small thing, but it's key for an apples-to-apples comparison. And as you can see here, the rate isn't set in stone forever. It definitely moves around with the economy. I mean, look, it's been up at 8% and down at 6.8% just in the last few years. This really drives home that key point we just talked about. The rate you get is the one on the day you invest, and that protects you from any future drops for the full 5 years. The appeal of the NSC isn't just about the interest rate. It's also a seriously powerful tool for tax planning, and it's got this hidden flexibility that a lot of people just don't know about. Let's dig into these perks. Okay, this is where the NSC really starts to shine. First off, any money you invest up to 1.5 lakh rupees a year is tax deductible under Section 80C. But here's the really clever part. The interest you earn for the first 4 years is considered reinvested. And guess what? That reinvested interest also qualifies for the tax deduction. It's like getting a double benefit. Only the interest from that 5th and final year is taxable. Okay, I can almost hear you thinking, a 5-year lock-in sounds pretty rigid. What if there's an emergency? Am I just stuck? It's a completely valid question, but the answer, thankfully, is no. And the reason is security. Because the NSC is backed by the full faith of the government, banks absolutely love it as collateral. You can just take your certificate to a bank, pledge it, and get a loan for about 80 to 90% of what it's worth. This gives you that emergency cash without having to break your investment, which is a surprisingly flexible feature. All right, let's talk about the practical stuff, the logistics. What happens if you move, or if your life circumstances change? Is this thing going to be a headache to manage? Good news here. If you move to a new city, you don't have to make a trip back to your old post office. The process is really simple. You just fill out one form, get it signed and verified, and the post office takes care of moving all your records to a branch that's convenient for you. Now, transferring ownership to another person is a different story. That's much more restricted. It's usually only allowed in very specific cases, like if the holder passes away and that goes to their nominee, or if a court orders it. You can't just decide to gift it to someone one day. It doesn't quite work like that. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground. We've talked about what it is, how it works, and the perks. So let's bring it all home and ask the most important question. With all the options out there, does the National Savings Certificate actually make sense for you? This quote just nails the whole point of the NSC. It's not trying to compete with stocks or crypto or other high-risk investments. That's not its job. Its job is to be the bedrock of your financial plan, the part that is absolutely 101% safe, giving you a guaranteed return no matter what the markets are doing. And this table here really lays out the trade-offs. Compared to a tax-saving FD, the NSC gives you a better deal on taxes, since you only pay at the very end. But compare it to the PPF, and you'll see the NSC is much shorter, 5 years versus 15, and the fixed rate gives you more certainty. The big win for PPF, though, is that its interest is totally tax-free. So you see, there's no single best option. They're each built for slightly different goals. Ultimately, the choice really boils down to this one question. The NSC is a fantastic tool if your number one priority is rock-solid safety and tax savings over the next 5 years. Look, it's not going to make you rich overnight, but it will protect your money and grow it steadily. And in a world that can feel pretty volatile, that kind of certainty is a really valuable thing to have. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.